This is my CompTIA Cloud Plus Guide to Cloud Computing review of the first three chapters or modules. Currently taking ITS 279 at FVCC, and I'm recording this so that I can listen to it myself while I sleep and ride my motorcycle tomorrow. Module summary for Section 1. The CompTIA Cloud Plus certification is a vendor-neutral entry-level cloud computing certification that requires demonstration of technical skills. Popular cloud vendor certifications are published by CSPs such as Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. CSP stands for Cloud Service Provider. Cloud computing consists of 5 essential characteristics: on-demand self-service, broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured service. Most skills most needed by cloud professionals include security skills, cross-discipline expertise, automation scripting skills, and lifelong learning. Public cloud services are hosted on hardware resources at the cloud service provider's location, so at the CSP's location. Private cloud services are hosted on hardware resources used exclusively by a single organization. A hybrid cloud is a mix of both public and private cloud components, or a combination of some cloud and some traditional on-prem services. On-prem meaning on premises, where those components and services interact with each other in a direct and seamless manner. A multi-cloud model involves using cloud services from multiple vendors at one time. A community cloud is accessible to multiple organizations with similar concerns, but not to the general public. When using a cloud within a cloud solution, customers can migrate their vCenter virtualization environment onto a public cloud platform. Cloud service models. The usual classification of cloud service models, as defined by NIST, are SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. SaaS meaning software as a service, PaaS meaning platform as a service, and IaaS meaning infrastructure as a service. Each of these common service models, SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, present increasing layers of security issues, where SaaS requires data and access security. PaaS additionally requires configuration and root access security, and IaaS requires security measures similar to an on-premises network. Cloud service providers. Market leading infrastructure as a service and platform as a service cloud service providers include AWS, Amazon, Azure, which is the Microsoft option, and GCP, Google Cloud. Other popular cloud service providers include Alibaba Cloud, IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud, OpenStack, VMware, and Eucalyptus. Cloud services are grouped into categories such as compute, storage, networking, security, application components, and management tools. The IoT, Internet of Things, is a collection of all devices connected to the Internet. Troubleshooting methodology. Common problems encountered with cloud technologies include connectivity issues, latency, capacity, and security. The steps for CompTIA's troubleshooting methodology are as follows. Identify the problem. Establish a theory of probable cause. Test the theory to determine cause. Establish a plan of action to resolve the problem and implement the solution. Verify full system functionality and if applicable, implement preventative measures and document findings, actions, and outcomes. There are 6 steps there. Preventive measures include good monitoring practices, thoughtful dashboard design, effective change management, and a clear understanding of a company's cloud infrastructure. I think I'm going to read over the solutions to the self-check questions. Which cloud platform does the CompTIA Cloud certification target? None. The CompTIA Cloud Plus certification is vendor neutral and so does not target any specific cloud platform. Which of these certifications require the least technical skill? AWS Cloud Practitioner. The AWS Cloud Practitioner certification is a non technical entry level AWS certification appropriate for professionals in technical, managerial, sales, purchasing, or financial roles. Which of the following is not an essential characteristic of cloud computing? Adaptive security. Cloud providers often describe additional characteristics and benefits to cloud computing, including adaptive, intelligent security that takes advantage of AI, artificial intelligence, technology to improve built in security defenses. However, this is not an essential characteristic of cloud computing as defined by NIST. Which of these standards protects credit card information stored in a public cloud? The PCI DSS. For all companies that provide credit card services, including accepting, storing, processing, or transmitting credit card data, the PCI DSS Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard sets requirements for keeping that information secure. What factor limits the capacity of a private cloud to provide resources to users? Hardware. Because a private cloud runs on hardware dedicated to only that cloud, its capacity is limited to the capabilities of the hardware on which it runs. An AWS hosted network using the G Suite productivity apps is an example of what kind of cloud? A multi cloud. A multi cloud model involves using cloud services from multiple vendors at one time, such as AWS and Google. Which cloud service model requires the least skill to use? SaaS. With SaaS, software as a service, applications can be accessed from different types of devices without having to manage any of the underlying infrastructure with such as the network servers, operating systems, or storage. Which cloud service model requires the most skill to adequately secure? IaaS. Infrastructure as a service customers must consider similar security concerns as when running their own on premises infrastructure. This includes compliance regulations, audit requirements, and identity management, in addition to all other concerns for securing platform as a service and software as a service solutions. Which public cloud platform offers the most streamlined integration with Windows Active Directory? Azure. Azure is designed for seamless compatibility with Microsoft's other tools, such as Windows Active Directory. In which cloud category would you most likely find a service for configuring DNS records? Networking. DNS is a networking function and will be found in the networking category in most cloud platforms. Which Internet of Things device provides access to a personal assistant app? Smart speaker. Voice controlled smart speakers offer access to embedded personal assistant apps such as Alexa, Siri, and Google Assistant. What cloud configuration technique can be used to compensate for capacity challenges? Auto scaling. Cloud services can be designed to auto scale in order to avoid capacity related problems. What is the last step of CompTIA's troubleshooting methodology? Documentation. Once a problem has been resolved, the symptoms, findings, actions, and outcomes should all be documented in a knowledge base for future reference. Module 2. Virtualization Technologies. Each VM, virtual machine, can have its own OS, operating system, and all the VMs on a physical computer share the same hardware resources. A Type 1 hypervisor is installed directly on the firmware of a physical machine, while a Type 2 hypervisor is installed as an application in an existing operating system. A Type 1 hypervisor is also referred to as a bare metal hypervisor. Each virtual machine can be configured to network with other machines on the physical network or only to its host and other VMs on the same host. When configuring VMs inside of a hypervisor, you're given options for the number and size of CPUs and GPUs, amount and type of memory, storage type and space, and access to device drivers. Virtualized processing and memory. Whether building virtual machines in the cloud or on a hypervisor, a technician will need to decide how many vCPUs to give the virtual machine. Most Type 1 hypervisors allow you to configure various RAM settings for each virtual machine: minimum memory, maximum memory, and startup memory. Virtual machines in the cloud. When deploying virtual machine instances in the cloud, cloud service providers offer pre-configured instance types where CPU and memory capacity are automatically allocated in a fixed ratio. When launching many instances of the same configuration, you can use a template to ensure every instance is configured the same way. Guest virtual machines residing on the same host are part of an affinity group, while an anti-affinity rule will ensure virtual machines do not share the same physical host. Factors that directly affect the cost efficiency of virtualized CPU and memory sources for a particular deployment include security considerations, HA, high availability requirements, DR, disaster recovery strategies, energy savings, and cost considerations. VM alternatives. When running a serverless application, the cloud service provider offers short term use of a server only when the application other code needs to run. A container is a lightweight, self contained environment that provides the services needed to run an application in nearly any operating system environment. When you write code for an application to be run in a container, You include with the code some information about the dependencies needed for that application to work. When originally creating a Docker image, you can set hard limits on the access a computer has to its host, CPU cycles, or memory. Self-check questions for Module 2. Virtualization Technologies. When starting a virtual machine in a Type 1 hypervisor, which component starts first? The hypervisor. With Type 1 hypervisors, the motherboard's BIOS or UEFI firmware hands the startup process to the installed hypervisor, which then boots any virtual machines it's configured to start up automatically. Which network mode requires a virtual machine to receive an IP address from the physical network's DHCP server? Bridged. In bridged mode, a VNIC, a virtual network interface card, obtains its own IP address, default gateway, and subnet mask information from the physical LAN's local area network's DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol server. Your hypervisor can allocate use of the host GPU to only one virtual machine at a time. Which deployment technique is the hypervisor using? Pass-through. With pass-through GPU deployment, the GPU can only be used by one virtual machine at a time. How many threads? On virtualized processing and memory. How many threads does an SMT-enabled 16-core CPU offer? Simultaneous multi-threading. Just means it could do both. So 32. Using the formula, number of threads equals number of CPUs times physical number of cores times 2 if using SMT. A 16-core simultaneous thread-enabled CPU offers 32 threads. 1 times 16 times 2. Which of the following license types do you use when you purchase and install Microsoft Office on your personal computer? A client access license. A CAL, client access license, is a software license provided per user or per device. Which memory management technique borrows memory from one virtual machine for another virtual machine? Ballooning. Ballooning is a way to trick the guest operating system into releasing some of its RAM so the hypervisor can allocate it elsewhere. Virtual machines in the cloud. Which selection determines the amount of RAM a cloud virtual machine can use? Instance type. The instance type determines the instance's virtual hardware resources, including virtual CPUs, RAM, and storage space. Which configuration parameter can ensure all the virtual machines for a deployment reside on the same physical host? Affinity. Guest virtual machines residing on the same physical host are part of an affinity group. Which principle ensures you can consistently access your cloud resources? Consistently access your cloud resources. HA. HA, high availability, is a resource's maximized potential for being available consistently over time, and is often referred to as the number of nines reinforced or referenced in the percentage. So, quad 9, quintuple 9, 99.999. Virtual machine alternatives. Who manages the server behind a serverless compute service? The CSP, the cloud service provider. Despite the name, servers are still involved with serverless computing. However, the cloud customer doesn't have to bother with configuring or managing the server. The cloud service provider does this part. Which component does a container virtualize? The operating system. A container is a self-contained environment that provides the operating system services needed to run an application. Essentially, this is an operating system virtualization. Which file contains the information needed to create a container instance? Docker image. Once the code and all its variables and dependencies are defined, the information is packaged into a Docker image. This image will serve as a template for all the containers that will run this code. Module 3, Migration Planning. When moving an organization's IT resources to the cloud, you complete 5 major phases of the project: assess, plan, migrate, validate, and manage. Before beginning a cloud migration, a thorough assessment will evaluate whether the cloud is a good fit for business needs and which part of the company's data center might work well in a cloud environment. An effective migration plan contains thorough information on network baselines, business continuity needs, dependencies between existing systems, needed target hosts, cloud architecture design, relevant legal restrictions, and planned order of operations. Cloud migration categories include the following: rehost, revise or replatform, repurchase or replace, refactor, re-architect or rebuild, retain, and rehire. Environmental constraints require careful scheduling to minimize the impact of downtime and maximize the available network bandwidth for the migration. Migration execution. Change management provides carefully defined processes to evaluate the need for a change, the cost of a change, a plan for making the change with minimal disruption, and a backup plan if the change doesn't work as expected. Automation reduces overall time and cost of the migration, as well as potential for mistakes or unplanned downtime. Organizations can choose from several data transfer methodologies, depending on how much data they need to migrate and how quickly, including the public internet, a private connection, or an offline transfer. Common virtual machine migration processes include P2V, V2V, V2P, and P2P. Storage migration is the process of moving blocks or volumes of data from one storage medium to another. A cross-service migration is the migration of a resource from one service type in a cloud platform to a different service type in the same platform, and often can be performed more easily using a cloud provider's in-platform migration tools. Deployment testing and validation. Common testing techniques include functional testing, performance testing, load testing, regression testing, usability testing, and security testing. Right sizing balances performance requirements and capacity needs with budgetary restrictions. An SLA, service level agreement, identifies minimum performance benchmarks and maximum downtimes for specific services and defines options for resources recourse should performance fall short of guaranteed minimums or maximums. Common deployment issues include resource contention, template misconfiguration, CSP or ISP outages, so cloud service provider or internet service provider outages, platform integration issues, licensing outages, and time synchronization issues. Cloud agility. Project management is the application of set of specific skills, tools, and techniques to manage a project in such a way that the desired outcome is achieved. Due to its software defined nature, much of a cloud deployment's configuration is managed through ALM, application lifecycle management phases, which follow the progression of an application or software defined deployment from its conception through its retirement. Build automation in a DevOps environment can streamline release and increase agility, which is crucial or critical for CI and CD. Contiguous, continuous integration, continuous delivery. Planning for problems. Limitations on cloud capacity might be imposed by CSP quotas and throttles, account owner caps, or technology limitations. Vertical scaling increases resources allocated to an existing instance or storage container, while horizontal scaling increases the number of running instances or available storage containers. BC, business continuity, refers to a company's ability to weather a failure, crisis, or disaster of some kind while maintaining continuity of operations, especially for critical services to customers and income generating activities. The RPO, Recovery Point Objective, shows at what point in the past data will be recovered from, while the RTO, Recovery Time Objective, shows at what point in the future will full functionality will be restored, less any lost data. We have a lot of acronyms here, so I'm just going to run through them before I get to the review questions. BCP, Business Continuity Plan. BIA, Business Impact Analysis. CAB, Change Advisory Board. CD, Continuous Deployment or Continuous Delivery. CI, Continuous Integration. CMDB, Configuration Management Database. COL, Co-Location Facility. COOP, Continuity of Operations Plan. DNS, Domain Name Service. DR, Disaster Recovery. DRP, Disaster Recovery Plan. IOPS, Input Output Operations per Second. LTS, Long Term Support. NTP, Network Time Protocol. OLA, Operational Level Agreement. P2P, Physical to Physical. P2V, Physical to Virtual. RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. RPO, Recovery Point Objective. RTO, Recovery Time Objective. SDLC, Software Development Life Cycle. SLA, Service Level Agreement. SSH, Secure Shell. TCO, Total Cost of Ownership or Total Cost of Operations. UAT, User Accepting Testing. V2P, virtual to physical, V2V, virtual to virtual, and VHD, virtual hard disk. Solutions to self-check. Questions. Migration planning. What physical restriction might make the cloud unreasonable for certain types of workloads? Latency. Latency is the delay between the transmission of a signal and its receipt, and this physical reality might make certain cloud hosted services unreasonably slow. What cloud migration strategy requires the most work to perform? Refactor. Refactoring requires the most significant changes to a resource, such as recoding portions of an application. What kind of expense is an electric bill? OpEx. The benefits of OpEx, expenses, such as an electric bill, are experienced in about the same period as when the expenses are paid, such as on a monthly or quarterly basis. Migration execution. Who submits the change request? The change initiator. A change initiator determines the need for a change and submits an informal change request that covers details about the requested change. Which data transfer methodology requires a long term commitment? A private connection. A private connection often requires a long term contract with an ISP, Internet Service Provider, and paying for a direct connection to the CSP, the Cloud Service Provider's POP, point of presence. Which migration type is most likely used to restore a physical server from backup? V2P. A V2P, virtual to physical, migration might be used when recovering a physical system from a virtual machine backup. Deployments, testing, and validation. What kind of testing would detect unintended changes to an interdependent system? Regression testing. Regression testing confirms that changes to one system haven't negatively impacted other functions within that system or other systems in the network. Which feature ensures a resource adjusts size to meet demand? Auto scaling. Auto scaling is the automatic increase or decrease of capacity as needed. Which problem can result in an inappropriately opened RDP port? Template misconfiguration. When creating or migrating servers, template misconfigurations can have serious implications for security, such as leaving remote access channels like SSH or RDP open to the internet. Secure shell. Yeah, I think that's what SSH stands for. RDP, remote uh, desktop protocol. Which of the following is not a category of project management processes? Securing. A project involves many processes that are generally grouped into five categories: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. Which of the following is accomplished by a circular approach to SDLC? Agility. A continuous or cyclical software development approach offers increased agility, which is the ability to adapt quickly to market demands according to increased or decreased feature use. Which channel incorporates user testing? Beta. The beta release benefits from user testing on the dev and canary builds. Development build, and canary build. Development build is what you would use if you are developing software to integrate with another software. You would use their development build for your integration. Planning for problems. Adding more RAM to a web server is what kind of capacity adjustment? Vertical scaling. Scaling up, called vertical scaling, increases resources such as vCPUs or IOPS allocated to an existing instance or storage container. Which kind of backup site provides the fastest RTO, return to operations? Hot site. A hot site contains identical resources to the original site and can take over functionality nearly instantaneously. It's just a change of IP addresses and suddenly it's up. Or a DNS redirect. What kind of DR test involves the most people? Disaster recovery test. Disaster simulation testing. Disaster simulation testing requires the presence and participation of all personnel, including business partners and vendors. IOPS, I'm going to go over what IOPS stands for one more time. Input Output Operations per second. All right. That is the first three modules of Cengage's CompTIA Cloud Plus. I hope that that is helpful when it comes to your review. I'm definitely going to listen to it a couple times for myself, possibly while I sleep. All right.